Okay, when I ask you to do that again, after we have a little video intro, you've got to kick it up just a few more notches and really just blow out the speakers in this place. Think you can do that? Without further ado, let's take a look.
You betrayed our friendship, you betrayed everything that I've ever stood for. You let me down!
Why are you helping me?
Why? Do you think I care for you so little that betraying me would make a difference?
Does sarcasm help?
Wouldn't it be a big universe if it did?
From the beginning of time, that's a very long story.
No, not the hugging. No, I'm against the hugging.
I don't deserve a friend like you.
Clara, I'm terribly sorry. That was actually just me.
Fans, friends of all ages, let's welcome him to the stage, Peter Capaldi! Keep it going, keep it going!
So many of you.
Was that punk rock enough for the punk rock doctor?
That was fantastic. Thank you. What a warm welcome. Fantastic to be here. Oh, thank you. I love you too, whoever you are.
I've just a couple of questions for you before we turn it over to the audience, because the fans are the reason that we're here in the first place. Peter, you are well known for being in Doctor Who, but you're also very well known by now for being a fan of Doctor Who yourself.
Yeah.
Do you have any deep cuts, any gems among the Doctor Who canon that you're a fan of that maybe aren't as well known as the Daleks, as the Cybermen, whether creatures or storylines, things that you loved?
Well, I was thinking about this, and the thing that I really loved from Doctor Who is something that has vanished, and has vanished probably forever, which was the mystery of it. Because when I began watching the show, we didn't know what a Time Lord was, or Gallifrey, or that the Doctor was the first Doctor, or the second Doctor, or the third Doctor. And we didn't know where he came from, which made him this mysterious and wonderful creature. And I realized that was a very sort of potent thing in the beginning of the show. And any show that runs this length of time faces this problem, which is that you have to continually explain to the audience. They want to know more and more and more. And I kind of like knowing less. Maybe it's because my brain's smaller. But I can't tell you much more. So I miss that. I miss the kind of strange mystery of Tortoise Lane and what that police box was doing there and where they came from. Because there was a time when you didn't know, we had no idea where the Doctor came from. We knew it was somewhere out there, but it wasn't even necessarily a planet. It could have just been a kind of interdimensional kind of cloud thing. So I miss the interdimensional cloud thing. But I've got my own, which I carry around with me.
One more and we'll turn it over to the fans. One of my favorite episodes from your run, which contains some of my favorite episodes of Doctor Who, Thin Ice, written by the brilliant Sarah Dollard, wonderful episode, but for me, I think far and away now, one of my favorite episodes is The Husbands of River Song. There's a beautiful layer of ambiguity built into, what happens during this very long date that they have. You get to play the Doctor as the companion. What was it like doing that Christmas special, working with Alex Kingston? What was the experience of that?
Well, it was great because Alex is great, and she's a wonderful, wonderful actress, an experienced, smart, clever, witty, and very deep actress. So I think in a way we were able to do stuff that doesn't normally happen between the Doctor and the companion, if you like, because the companions are often much younger. I'm not saying that. I am older. I'm way older than Alex. But we had many things in common. And I admired her acting so much. And I think we were able to connect on lots of levels. So working with her was amazing. And also Douglas McKinnon, who directed the episode, is a wonderful director. He's just done Good Omens on TV. And he's a wonderful director. He had such vision and such creativity that he brought to it. And also it has a sadness to it. That's what I like about Doctor Who. There's always a kind of... I always think a good Doctor Who episode should scare you, thrill you, make you laugh, make you mock the terrible special effects, and make you feel a little bit sad. So it had them all, except for the bad special effects. That's what I miss from the old show. The really terrible special effects.
If you'll indulge me just a moment, we recently lost a brilliant production designer from the Doctor Who family. I wonder, because telling people's stories who work behind the scenes is the way that people remember them. Can you tell us a bit about your colleague who made the show?
Michael Pickford.
Yes.
Was an incredible designer. He designed every episode of Doctor Who that I did. And he was a very, very skilled, educated, erudite man. If you saw him, you might perhaps have him down as a kind of someone who was high in the church, maybe a bishop or something like that, because he had a very elegant way about him. But he knew everything. He knew if he was here, he would tell you where these mouldings in the ceiling had to come from, and if he was in a 17th century cottage, he could tell you how the plaster had been created. And he did wonders, because obviously sometimes, you know, the great trick of being of working in television is to take not a lot of money and make it look as if it is a lot of money. And Michael was a great expert in that. I mean, obviously they had a bit of money to spend on the TARDIS, which is why they just built it, and then Matt decided to leave. So that's why I got his TARDIS, because there's no money left to give me a TARDIS. But Michael was a genius at taking what wasn't there and conjuring something amazing for him. He also designed one of my most favourite films, which is With Nail and I. And that's Michael who's responsible for all those grotty flats and sets in there. He was a wonderful, wonderful man, and sorely missed.
Let's have a round of applause for Michael.
Good afternoon, Mr. Capaldi.
Call me Peter. Everyone call me Peter.
All right. I never assume. I was a very late bloomer when it comes to the whole Doctor Who universe. And when I did, I was so glad that I had the opportunity to really watch some great TV. This is my first ever Q&A where I got to ask a question. So,
what's your name?
My name is Nancy.
Let's hear it for Nancy.
That's my mother's name, Nancy. That doesn't mean anything.
Well, it means he already likes you.
No pressure.
Fantastic. Well, actually, your last question was a really great segue into what I wanted to ask Peter, was as the 12th Doctor, you're my doctor, and I really appreciated his sense of style. And I wanted to know, could you tell me a little bit about what those influences were in the costume design, whether or not you had that opportunity to speak with the dressers to influence that look, because you looked fantastic.
Well, the whole costume thing with Doctor Who is very difficult because there are a whole pile of people who have an interest in it. And they all need to be satisfied, and they all need to know that they feel confident about it, but they don't have to wear it. You know, and my whole thing was, you have to, when you put the costume on, feel like Doctor Who. I don't care what it looks like, but I've got to feel like Doctor Who. But I think because I'd been brought up with the original Doctors, I always kind of saw it in fairly stark black and white terms. Maybe that's just because we had black and white TVs in those days. But I wanted to do something that took it back to that sort of look. And I had great assistance from Howard Burton, who was the costume designer on my first season, who was brilliant. And Howard was very patient with me because I think he sensed that really I sort of had an idea of what I wanted to do, and he had to go through all these paces with me and take me to costume houses and make sure that I dressed up in silly hats and colourful coats and all kinds of waistcoats and stuff. And I just kept pushing it all the time to go into this darker, simpler kind of look. And eventually I went to, there's a wonderful designer called Paul Smith, Sir Paul Smith in London, who does, in fact, there's in the mall here, in a couple of the malls, he's got shops here in Toronto, and he's a brilliant designer, and I asked him if he would give us a little advice. And I said I wanted this very simple look, so I went to his studio, and we dug around his studio, and we found a Crombie coat, and I was very keen that whatever we did would be cheap, so that people could copy it, kids could copy it, so I said, let's get a white shirt that we can just button up so a school kid could just have that. The shoes were my own Doc Martens. They were Doc Marten boots, which I wore. Unfortunately, they fell apart because we were filming. And we couldn't, Doc Marten stopped making them, so we had to get really expensive ones, replacements. So we ended up with what I wanted. But the pressure was always to be colourful. And I thought that was not a good direction to go in. And that's why even I think, that's why I said, well, let's have a lining in there. But then they pushed the coat should be black, it shouldn't be blue. You know, they said blue photographs as black. I didn't believe that really. So it came from me, really. I ended up with a lot of my own clothes. The holy shirt's mine.
Was there a David Bowie influence?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, no, because I love David Bowie, and so because he always had the little buttoned-up shirt, and the man who fell to earth, and of course David Lynch has that too, and David Byrne used to do that. These are all people who were around when I was growing up, or in those formative years. So yeah, so that was an influence. I just wanted something a little edgier, a little kind of harder. And that's what we got. But of course, as you go on, every costume designer that shows up wants to make their mark, so they want to do something different. So you sort of have this battle all the time, trying to kind of do what you want and satisfy everyone else.
Thank you very much. That was just super wonderful.
Thank you, Nancy. That's Nancy's first question at a convention Q&A ever. There she is. First of many. See you later.
Hi. Huge Doctor Who fan, but I actually want to ask about the video that you did for your cousin, someone who I love.
Yeah.
Heartbreaking video.
Yeah.
Means so much to me, just the song. But if you could tell us a little bit about making the video, but specifically I was curious, were you listening to anything in the headphones?
In the headphones? No.
No, so it's
No.
just...
No, well, we barely heard the song. I mean, really, Lewis was absolutely amazing. He's only 22 years of age. He's absolutely fabulous. I went to see him in concert, like about a year before that. I didn't really know him growing up or anything. But I thought he was fab. I was so proud, even though I used nothing to do with me, really. And I went backstage and we chatted and blah, blah, blah. He's amazing. And then about a year later, they called up and said, would you like to be in our pop video? I'd be in anybody's pop video, do you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be a relation. I said, yeah, of course. So I went and they told me the story. They worked out this entire story. It was great to act in because there were no lines. I didn't have to learn any words, but I had to try and understand the story. And I don't think I really heard the song until I think the night before, I think that we did it. And I thought, oh, that's great. I didn't know it was going to be number 14 in the Billboard charts this week and going up. And Lewis came down and hung around while we were shooting it. And it was I loved doing it because it was a really powerful story. And rather than, they could have easily just done, you know, Lewis with guitars and stuff, but they didn't. They chose to do it this way. And I think Lewis' mum had been a nurse as well. So for those of you who don't know, this is a music video that a relation of mine has made with this very successful song that he's written. But the video we did is about organ donation. That sounds terrible. I don't mean the film is all us taking organs out of bodies. It's about a man who we discover late in the song. He's listening on his headphones to something, and it's actually the recorded heartbeat of his late wife. But her heart has been passed on to somebody else, and he meets her. So it's a great, you know, it's a great video. It's not Bohemian Rhapsody, but you know.
Beautiful, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, Peter. I love that video too. I actually cried for like 20 minutes. But what I would like to ask you is, I really loved Franz Kafka's It's a Wonderful Life, and I'm starting out as a short filmmaker, so as a writer-director, do you have any advice?
Any advice for writers and directors? Surround yourself with talented people. And do everything for as little money as possible. That might be easy for you. And the more money comes into the picture, the more control other people exercise, and the more difficult it is to get what you want on the screen. If there's not a lot of money involved, people don't care. And if you are surrounded by gifted people, they will take very little money, like I was saying with Michael. When I did the Kafka film, I thought, I'll surround myself with people who, if we have nothing, I know that at the end of the day, they can lift a paintbrush and paint a sky or make something. People who surround yourself by gifted people you trust and take no money.
Thank you very much. It's not going to be about Doctor Who, it's going to be about the series Musketeer. Okay. So I wanted to know how it was to play Cardinal de Richelieu with those amazing outfits in those beautiful plays.
Well, how did I cope with them? I loved them. It was a big cloak with the red lining. It was fantastic. I loved playing with all those cloaks, and it was very hot, obviously, because we were in Prague, which was beautiful. I love Prague, but it gets very hot in the summer there. But if you look fab, who cares? The funny thing about it was the costume designer was Howard, who later designed Doctor Who. I said to him, "What are you doing after this?" He said, "I'm going on to do Doctor Who." I said, "Oh, really?" I said, "When is that starting?" He said, "I'm not quite sure," he said, "because they don't know when the new Doctor's available." I said, I wonder what he's up to. Because I knew it was me and I couldn't tell.
But you were amazing as Cardinal de Richelieu. It was amazing to see you in this. Thank you.
Hi. So, first, I'd like to thank you for your incredible performance as the 12th Doctor, and I'd like to thank you for your amazing contribution to the legacy of Doctor Who and the character. But what was your favorite part of being on set and filming and being the Doctor?
Well, it's, you know, there are so many. It's such a great job, and if you're a fan of the show, there's always a delight. Every day is delightful, obviously, you know. The first day when you go in and you work with the Dalek is extraordinary. Well, in fact, the first day with the Dalek, I remember, was it was, you know, it was in bits lying around all over the floor, and then there were all these people. Everybody, obviously there's somebody in it who's a wonderful man called Barnaby, who's great. But it never, and there's a man with a switch who operates the lights. And then there's Nick Briggs, who sits around the corner with his microphone, does the voice. And they're all kind of all over the place. And then there's somebody gets in, and it's like, and you go, oh, this is all not any good. This is all looks a bit tatty. And then the wheel the Dalek in, and it hits the wall. And then when you do a scene with it, it suddenly all comes together. And it was brilliant. So it was brilliant seeing a Dalek. So that was a wonderful moment, seeing the Dalek come to life. But I don't like to pick any moments other than I would say that the great moments are arriving and leaving. They're very strange, very special, and you know that they will never be replicated in any other way. So those are pretty special.
Good. Thank you so much.
I just wanted to take a second to tell you what it's meant to me that you've played the Doctor, because you've been very outspoken about your appreciation of the show as a child and how you loved to watch the show and wrote to all the newsletters and fan letters. And I started watching the show around the time that you came on. And hearing all of those stories about how you started off as this wonderful fan of the show and then grew up to play the character you admired spoke a million things to me, and it made me want to more actively pursue following those things that I loved as a child. And I can say because of you, I fought hard to end up on a lot of the channels that I watched as a kid. And so I wanted to thank you both as an actor and also as a kid on behalf of the kids who look to you the way you look to William Hart.
Oh, thank you very much. That's really good of you. God bless you. That's such a nice thing to say. And I should point out as well, I'm not the only fan that works on the show.
I hear Stephen Moffat had watched 1 or 2 episodes.
Yeah, but that's, there are piles of people who work on the show who loved it when they were kids. So this is a path that is well trodden, and it's all about imagination and discipline, commitment, and anything you love, you can do. I don't want to sound corny, but you can kind of do anything. When you're a kid and there's something you love, you can do it, even though maybe the environment you're in doesn't tell you that. Maybe if it feels like light years away from who you are or what you have around you, you can do anything. So I'm glad that you're a sign of that.
I was curious about the audition process for Doctor Who, because a lot of people have talked about theirs and how it was always covered in this shroud of mystery. So I wanted to ask about your experience in particular, if you had that kind of shroud of mystery over it, you didn't know what you were auditioning for at times.
A shroud of mystery? No, because they phoned me and said, how would you feel about being the new Doctor Who? I said, well, that would be fun.
Let's be fair, all auditions should be like that.
Yeah, that sounds fun. So, and then I said, but what does that mean? How would I feel about being the new Doctor Who? Are you saying you are the new Doctor Who? Or are you saying, how would you feel about it? None of your business. Unless you're going to give me it. So they just sort of, I think what happened was they sort of wanted me, but they didn't know how I felt. Because I could have just said, no, I get lost. I don't want to be in this tired old pile of sci-fi tat. So I think they wanted to just check me out. So they then asked me, I said, yeah, of course, what I'd love to do. What do you want me to do? How do we do this? And they said, well, you should come to, I went to Stephen's house. And this is while I was doing the Musketeers, so I'm flying back and forth from Prague. I'll be in Prague. I remember I was at Prague airport, and I suddenly got this script on email, and it was a regeneration scene. It was my regeneration scene. And they said, can you come and do this for us? So I thought, oh, well, okay, if they want me to jump through hoops, I'll do it, because it's Doctor Who. So I went and did this to Stephen's house, and did this wonderful regeneration scene that he'd written, which wasn't the same as the one they shot. It was much funnier. Because the doctor kept saying to Clara, how's the face? Is it good? Is it good? And she'd be saying, well, it's a little what? It's a little lined. What do you mean lined? She's a little old? What do you mean old? Has the chin gone? Stephen always did that. He always insulted you. He was insulting Matt. He always called Matt Chin Boy. Which, if that's a chin that's worthy of insult, I'd love to have that chin. And so he always put insults in the script that he would never have the guts to say to your face. Like about my eyebrows or the way I ran. He'd never say that to me in real life. So they made me do that. And it was, I did that, and it seemed to go on for hours. Because they kept saying, do it like this, do it like that, do it like that. So I did that. And then they phoned and said, okay, let's go. So that was cool.
So like many of the other people here, I am a massive Doctor Who fan. And my first episode was actually the pilot. So thank you for getting me into this fandom and for being so incredible.
Thank you.
No problem. My question is, being a fan your entire life, I mean, you stepped into the role of the Doctor. But if you, as Peter, had the opportunity to be a companion to any Doctor and to experience the events of any episode, the Doctor doesn't have to match this episode, who would it be, what episode would you be a part of, and why?
If I wanted to be a companion in Doctor Who?
Which Doctor, which storyline, what calls to you?
I think I'd be Katie Manning in Claws of Axos. Because I love the Claws of Axos, and I love that they don't really have any money at all. And I can see the script probably described the Axons as beautiful, Grecian-looking, godlike figures. And really they're in kind of spandex.
They look like they're backup dancers on Solid Gold.
Backup dancers, that's right. Spandex body stockings with their faces sprayed gold. And then they turn into rubber things with tentacles. And Katie has to scream at them a lot. But John saves her, so I think I'd be good at that.
Thank you.
Hi. My question is, what was the funniest behind-the-scenes moment when you were doing Doctor Who?
It wasn't that funny, really. There wasn't fun. Every day there were funny things, but like most things that happen, at work, they're only funny to the people that were there. Because I would find out things about other people. There was somebody who was with a very favourite first assistant director who I discovered worked on another show when he wasn't doing Doctor Who, which was a terrible show. And I managed to get I brought in a whole pile of DVDs of that terrible show that nobody wanted to, that he tried to forget about. But you see, that was only funny when we were there. There was a funny time when Jenna was one of the many times Jenna decided she was leaving.
She's like Barbara Streisand. She retires many times.
That's right. She's many times. And there was another actress was mooted to be taking over. Oh, I had suggested another actress who I knew would annoy her. So I suggested this other actress, and I was doing a scene and we're filming. I turned round and Jenna was there in the scene, and she was wearing a mask of this other actress. Who I can't say who that was, but she had this other actress's face. And then it was funny as well, because we also did this, sometimes in Doctor Who, like there's always we don't have quite enough time to film all the episodes, so we usually film them one after another, but there comes a period when you have to film two at the same time, because there isn't enough time to reach the end of our production schedule. So usually that means one episode in each season will be Dr. Light. so that he can go off and do a whole episode there, and just come in and do 3 days on this Dr. Light episode. And of course, that's how Blink happened with the Weeping Angels, because David was off doing another episode. So the episode that occurred to me in was Flatline, which is why I'm locked in the TARDIS for 3 days. You know, they said that would be really easy, except there was, 55 pages of dialogue.
This will be no problem. The only problem will be your problem.
Yeah, but when we were, so that meant Jenna and I were separated, and so she used to send me videos of her singing sad songs like "Oh Bye." And so I got the crew on my side. We were doing Mummy on the Orient Express, and I got the crew, and we all sang "Thank You for Being a Friend."
Welcome to Toronto, first of all. Thank you for coming to Fan Expo Canada. It really made my whole weekend. My question for you is, Peter, can you tell us a little bit more about the role they're having, involved you having your haircut?
With my haircut?
Yeah.
No, I can't.
We were at Boston last weekend, and friends of mine were texting me, "Is it true? Is it true about his lovely, beautiful hair?"
Yeah, so I hope it's going to come back.
It already is.
But it's for, I can't, at the moment I can't tell you, not because I don't want to tell you, or because I'm not allowed to tell you, but I'm going to be completely bald. So they started it because they had to do some prosthetics. So they had to take my hair back, and I said, could you leave a little bit, because I'm going to Toronto. And I want to look good for the people there. And so they left a little bit. And we did some head casts and stuff, and then I came here. So that's why. But when I go home, it's gonna go again all the way.
So when it can be known, we will definitely hear about this, I assume. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I'm not telling you because I don't want to, but also be coy about it. And in fact, I'll curb your enthusiasm. It'll be what it'll be. But yeah, that's what it is. It's how does it look? Is it okay? Good, nice to see you.
Hello, Peter.
Hi.
So I got a question. Let me start here. So your doctor met the first doctor. Which other doctor would you like to see your doctor interact with?
My doctor.
What are the crossovers?
Like, would you like to meet the 10th doctor, 5th doctor?
No, I've never been a fan of the Doctor meets Doctor stories, apart from the 3 doctors. I think there's sort of, it's diminishing returns. It's like what I was saying about mystery. I mean, it's the more, so is this going to go on forever? We're going to end up with, the 100th year special, and that's going to be like a TARDIS full of like 60 different actors. So I think that they, in a way, they sort of diminish the oddness and uniqueness of the idea, strangely. But I don't know, there's no way out of that. I don't know what the answer is. But the first one I liked, because it'd never been done. We'd never seen anything like that. It was extraordinary to see those 3 together. And of course also William Hartnell was very ill, so couldn't actually come to the studio and do the shooting, so he had to go down and shoot at his cottage. And also John Pertwee and Patrick Troughton went down there and did a photo shoot with him at his cottage, which is those pictures that you see, which is amazing.
On a similar note, though...
There's an ice cream van here somewhere. That's all right.
Perhaps on a similar note, are there other parts of Doctor Who history or other characters, companions, things that you would have liked to see the 12th Doctor get to visit for an episode or so?
I always wanted to go to, because I had a very soft spot for it, I always wanted to go back to the Web Planet, which is an old episode with William Hartnell, which was, they very courageously, with no money and no time, said, well, let's take the doctor to a planet of insects, of giant insects. Let's create a whole planet of insects. And they had some cardboard, and some cotton wool, and some paint, and a little bit of fiberglass, and they tried to make a world which, as a 7-year-old kid, was the most enthralling, amazing place when I saw it. With these creatures called the Zarbi and the Menoptera, which were these strange moth-like creatures that spoke and sing-song whispers. And I never saw it again until I became the doctor, and I thought, I better go and have a look back at all these things. And it wasn't as great as I remember.
Thank you.
So I would have liked to have paid tribute to it by having it CGI'd.
Well, maybe Big Finish will do something about that.
Hi, this is my first panel question. Hi, Peter. You're a fantastic actor, and I know you're a movie fan. So I was just wondering if you could name your favorite movie quote.
My favorite movie quote?
Yes, sir.
You mentioned Withnail and I earlier, and that movie is full of memorable stuff.
Oh, I love Withnail and I. It's full of the most fabulous lines. I love Uncle Monty, who's a rather elegant older gentleman who's very rich and rather delicate. And he says, as a youth I wept in butcher's shops, which was a great kind of very elegant. I like, Casablanca.
Yeah, that movie's full of quotes. That movie's full of quotes.
That movie's full of quotes,
Funnily, so many that are misquoted, and that's the way that people think that they're.
That's why I was frightened to say them.
You can never go wrong. You can never go wrong with "Here's Looking at You, Kid."
You go with what?
You can never go wrong with "Here's Looking at You, Kid."
I
Or
can't
we'll
hear
always.
Can't go wrong with Who's Looking.
Oh, who's looking at you?
Or
Yeah.
we'll always have parents.
I like the Hill of Beans thing.
Oh, yeah, that whole scene is.
Yeah. Oh, and of course, the fabulous and late Rutger Hauer in Blade Runner and those fabulous things that he wrote. But my favorite quote is not a very family-friendly one. I love it.
I mean, we're at the end of the show. They can't fire me at this point.
No, I love. I'm in a film called Dangerous Liaison, so I only have a small part. John Malkovich plays a part called Valmont, Viscount Valmont, and he says, "I have no illusions. I lost them on my travels," which I thought was incredible, and also rather Doctor Who-ish. I thought.
Thank you, Peter.
Hey, what's your name?
My name is Amy.
Let's hear it for her.
Hi, big Doctor Who fan. You're the first Doctor who's came to Fan Expo when I've been here, so really happy about that. My questions for you are, what was your favorite Doctor Who episode to film, and what was your favorite memory of working with Jenna Coleman? Big fan.
Favorite one to film, favorite memory of Jenna Coleman? Well, I love.
I'm trying to make you think too much, but
No, I don't like to. I don't like to isolate one and say that this was
you could
better.
just say one per season.
Or maybe was there a kind of episode to film that was particularly enjoyable?
Well, I always liked when we had a lot of stuff to do together, which was fun. I liked Listen. I thought Listen was great because
That was a good one.
Yeah. It was very mysterious. But Jenna was great. She was. Jenna was the first person to show me around the TARDIS.
Yes.
Because when I arrived to begin the job, she'd already been there, so she showed me where everything was. She got it all wrong, obviously. But yeah, no, we had a lot of great times together.
I loved the Robin Hood one was my favorite.
Which one?
The one with Robin Hood.
Oh, that was great.
Wait,
Yeah. This is my spoon. Yeah.
So it had
That was great.
favorite episode, but thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We've got about 5 minutes left. I think we can get through a few more people to go through.
Hello, sweetie.
Hi.
I had a few questions, but since we don't have a lot of time, just one. One of my favorite episodes is shortly after you've regenerated and you meet River Song for the first time, and she doesn't recognize you because it's a whole new body. She has such a beautiful monologue in that episode. I was wondering, is any part of that improvised? Was there any of your favorite improvisations throughout the episodes that you filmed that made it to the big screen?
No, because we didn't really improvise because we were proper actors.
You fired a missile in the war between actors and improvisers.
Although we were given these rather wonderful scripts, and she was given a wonderful script and a wonderful speech, and Alex is a gifted enough actress to be able to tell whatever story she likes with whatever words she's got. It's a very bad habit, young actors, to say, oh, I don't think this works for me. Really? Well, why don't you make it work for you?
And thank you for coming here.
Real quick. We're going to get a little bit more.
Someone kind of mentioned it earlier, but you won an Oscar for writing and directing a short film.
Yeah.
How come you don't make more movies, like more direct and write films now?
Well, that's a long story. Because I wasn't ready to make any film. I made a little film because I loved the idea. I love acting, and I'd gone to art school, and I loved the whole filmmaking process, and I wanted to find out about it. So I made a little film. I didn't know little films got Oscars. I didn't make it to get an Oscar. I did it because I liked doing that. And then the next thing I knew, it won an Oscar, and I didn't have a script ready to go or anything like that. I hadn't been to film school, so I didn't know, I wasn't ready. And then I was suddenly in Hollywood, and it was all Hollywoody. Quite tough, and then people were offering a lot of money, and I wrote a script, and I sold that, and I got a lot of money. I bought a house in London, and then they didn't want to make it. And it was over. And then a year had passed, and my Oscar had, whatever heat I had dissipated, and nobody cares. So then you're back at the start, and I thought, well, I only wanted to make a little film. I didn't want to become, Steven Spielberg or anything. So that's the short version.
So I've got good news, bad news, and good news once again. The good news is that I think this has been a wonderful end to Fan Expo Canada 25, yes? Sadly, we are out of time for questions, but the good news that I have on top of it is that Peter is going to be back at his table for a limited time, so he will be there to see you. To wrap things up, could you tell me a little bit about what it's been like meeting fans at your table at these conventions? Do you have memories from the first one of these conventions that you did? And what it's been like getting that kind of energy from the people that have watched you and loved you?
Well, what's extraordinary is you don't, people say, oh, it must be very tough, you're there all day long. Come on. You're sitting at the table and people are coming up telling you that you're great. And you get paid for it. Come on. What kind of a job is that? It's brilliant. But what I would say is when we make the show, anybody who makes a show, they're doing it in isolation. We were making it in the UK, far away from the rest of the world, and you just put your head down and you get on with the show, and you don't realize the power that it has out into the world. I'll tell you one very quick story. Everyone here in Toronto has been fantastic. Such kindness, such warmth. Thank you so much for that. And we meet people who are crazy about Doctor Who. We meet people who are crazy. We meet people who are having fun, who are not having fun, who are moaning about the prices, who are thrilled to be there, blah, blah, blah. But once I met a lady, this was just an example of how the show reaches out. And she said to me, and she couldn't speak because she was overcome with emotion. It wasn't because I was there. It was because, as I learned, she had a child who suffered from a very difficult medical condition, and that medical condition demanded a lot of procedures, which freaked them all out. And she said that every time they were on the eve of a procedure, they would, as a family, recite "Fear is a Superpower" speech from Leslie. And she said that got them through it. And that's such a great testament to Stephen Moffat's writing and to the power of Doctor Who and of good things in the world. So that's what happens when you do a convention. You get out, you come, and you meet, and you see how powerful these shows are and how positive goodness is in the world. So thank you for that.
One last thing. They put out a survey at the end of the show every year, and they want to know your feedback, what you liked, what you didn't like, and so on. If this was a wonderful end to the convention, tell them that. They want to hear what you loved. Usually people focus on constructive criticism, but tell them if you loved this man and what he brought to Toronto. And then you want him back. Let's blow the roof off this place one last time for Peter Capaldi.